I should have known something was wrong the moment my stepmom hugged me at the rehearsal dinner. She'd never hugged me before. Her arms wrapped around me just a little too tightly, her voice just a little too sweet as she whispered, "Your big day will be unforgettable." The way she said it sent a chill straight down my spine. But I didn't realize then that she wasn't wishing me well. She was warning me. Before I take you into the moment she nearly ruined my wedding over a grudge older than I am. Tell me where you're watching from, and subscribe so you don't miss stories like this, because what happened next shocked everyone, including me. I'm Elisa, 26 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my stepmother Camille has treated me like a painting she couldn't stop criticizing. Too bright, too loud, too mine. She never said it outright, but she didn't have to. Her silence was louder than her words. She married my dad when I was 6. My mother passed away when I was 4, and though my dad tried his best to keep our world gentle, Camille came in like a storm with her own ideas about how things should be. She was polite in public, distant at home, and always found a way to take the shine out of my life. Not enough to be obvious, just enough to sting. But never, not once, did I think she held a 20-year grudge against me, not until the wedding. The seemingly perfect day, my wedding planning had been surprisingly smooth. Venue booked, dress altered, flowers selected. My fiancé Evan was the perfect partner, supportive, patient, and ready to build a life with me. I invited Camille despite my reservations, mostly because my dad gently said it would mean a lot if the whole family could be there. Family. Sometimes that word felt heavier than the entire wedding budget. Camille nodded politely when she heard about our engagement. She said all the expected things, how lovely, how exciting, how expensive, but something in her tone sounded off, like she was evaluating, not celebrating. Still, I tried to ignore it. A daughter isn't supposed to assume her stepmother wants to sabotage one of the biggest days of her life, yet the signs were there. The strange behavior starts at the bridal boutique. Camille insisted on coming to help pick the dress. But every gown I tried on, she made a comment. "That one makes your shoulders look broad. That color washes you out. Are you sure that's flattering from the back?" At one point, she looked at me through the mirror and said, "Your mother would have chosen differently." My chest tightened. I didn't even know what that meant, or why she decided to invoke a woman she'd never met. But I swallowed my discomfort, smiled politely, and moved on. Because the last thing I wanted was conflict before the wedding. Looking back, I wish I had pushed harder. I wish I had been more suspicious. I wish I had understood what Camille was building toward. The first hint of the grudge, 2 weeks before the wedding, I passed by the kitchen and overheard her whispering to someone on the phone. "I won't let history repeat itself," she hissed. "Not again, not with her. Not with who? Not with what?" I stepped into the doorway. "Camille? Who are you talking about?" She actually jumped, then smiled too widely. "Oh, just a friend. Nothing important." But her eyes darted away, her fingers trembled. Her voice didn't sound like her own. I asked her directly, "Is something wrong?" "No," she said. "As long as you don't make the same mistake your mother made." My breath caught. What mistake? She didn't answer. She just turned and walked away as if she hadn't said a thing. I told myself she was being dramatic, or cryptic, or simply Camille, but the truth was darker, much darker. The rehearsal dinner, where it began to unravel. The night before the wedding, everyone gathered to celebrate, family, friends, Evan's parents. The room buzzed with laughter and music, and then Camille arrived. She wore a white dress. A white dress to my rehearsal dinner. People exchanged glances. Evan whispered, "Is that normal?" I shrugged, embarrassed. For her? Maybe. She gave a small speech to the room. Something about family, new beginnings, and finally letting go of the past. Letting go of the past? What past? My mother died before Camille ever entered our lives. When the dinner ended and she hugged me, her smile felt like ice against my shoulder. "I hope you're ready," she murmured. "For what?" I asked, pulling back. She just patted my cheek. "You'll see." That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, my stomach twisted with unease. It wasn't nerves, it wasn't cold feet. It was something else, a whisper in the back of my mind that said, "Camille isn't done. She's just getting started." And the next morning, the morning of my wedding, I finally learned what the grudge was and why she'd carried it for 20 years. It wasn't just about me. It was about something she believed my mother had taken from her, and now she intended to take something from me. The morning of my wedding should have felt magical. But instead, it started with a chill I couldn't shake. Camille's whisper from the night before looping in my mind. "I hope you're ready." I didn't know what she meant then. But her plan became clear quickly. SIGN number 1. My shoes disappeared. My bridesmaids and I were getting ready when I noticed my wedding shoes, the ones I'd hidden for safety, were gone. Did someone move them? I asked. We searched everywhere until Jenna returned, pale. Alyssa, they were in the hallway, under the radiator, and one is completely scuffed. My stomach dropped. I texted Camille. Did you move my shoes? Why would I touch them? She replied instantly. Her message felt like a smirk. Sign number 2. The wrong flowers arrived. The florist showed up with bouquets, but not mine. Bright red roses, not the blush peonies I chose to honor my mother. We received a call to change the order yesterday, the florist explained. A woman named Camille said the bride requested red. Everyone in the room froze. Camille had replaced my mother's favorite flower with her wedding flower, on purpose. My heart pounded. This wasn't help. This was taking control. Sign number 3. The missing letter. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my father arrived at the bridal suite with panic in his eyes. Alyssa, the letter your mother wrote for you. I brought it this morning. I set it down while getting ready. And now it's gone. Gone. The shoes, the flowers. Now the only message my mother ever left me. My eyes stung. Someone took it, and I knew who. The confrontation and Camille's slip. I found Camille near the reception hall, giving orders like she owned the venue. Where is my mother's letter? I asked. She blinked, feigning confusion. I have no idea. Don't lie, I whispered. You changed my flowers, you moved my shoes. And now the letter is gone. Why are you doing this? Her smile faltered, but only for a second. Then she leaned close and murmured, Your mother overshadowed me for 20 years. I won't let her overshadow today. My breath caught. There it was. The grudge. She wasn't trying to ruin the wedding. She was trying to erase my mother from it. My father overhears before I could respond. A voice behind us cut through the tension. Camille, give her the letter. It was my father. His expression wasn't angry. It was devastated. Camille froze. For the first time, panic flickered across her face. My father stepped forward. I saw you go into our room this morning. I didn't want to assume. But now I know. I stood perfectly still, heart pounding. Camille exhaled shakily, and for the first time all morning, she let her mask slip. She reached into her clutch and pulled out the envelope. My mother's handwriting. My knees nearly buckled. You weren't supposed to find out like this, she whispered. My father stared at her, eyes full of betrayal. On our daughter's wedding day? After everything you've done? And suddenly everything she had hidden for 20 years, everything she resented, everything she tried to bury, came rushing to the surface. This wasn't about me. This was about a wound she carried long before I was grown enough to understand it. And now, it was finally unraveling. Father's voice hung in the air like a breaking point, steady, cold, and filled with the truth he'd avoided facing for years. Camille, he repeated, give her the letter. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked between us, first at my father, then at me, as if calculating whether she could still salvage the image she'd protected for so long. Finally, her shoulders slumped. Not in remorse, in resignation. She reached into her clutch and pulled out the envelope, white, wrinkled, but unmistakably my mother's handwriting. A soft gasp escaped me. You had it, I whispered, all along. Camille didn't deny it this time. She simply looked at my father and said, You weren't supposed to find out this way. My father took a step closer. Then, how was I supposed to find out? On the day our daughter gets married? After you tried to sabotage everything. For the first time that morning? Camille stopped pretending. The 20-year-old revelation begins. She let out a bitter laugh, the kind people give when they're too tired to keep wearing a mask. You think I wanted this? She snapped softly. You think I wanted to feel like a placeholder in my own marriage? I blinked, confused. What are you talking about? Her gaze flicked to me. Your mother. My mother died when I was 4. Yes, she said, and your father married me 2 years later. But do you know what it's like to live in the shadow of someone who isn't even here anymore? My father stiffened. Camille. No, she said, her voice trembling. She was everywhere, in every room, in every picture, in every story you told. And Elisa. She looked at me directly. You're the image of her face, her expressions, even her voice. The words hit me unexpectedly hard. She continued, every time I tried to bond with you, you reminded me I was second wife, second choice, second mother. My throat tightened. I was a child. I didn't choose any of that. Her eyes glistened, not with sorrow but with decades of unresolved resentment. I know, but I still felt it, and your wedding this day. I told myself I could handle it. But when you chose peonies, her favorite flower, it felt like she was taking center stage again. So you tried to erase her? I asked, disbelief mixing with anger. I tried to make room for myself, she corrected sharply. Just once. My father's confession. My father stepped beside me, voice lower now. Camille? You never told me you felt this way. She laughed bitterly. Would it have changed anything? You kept her memory so alive I was competing with a ghost. My father looked shaken, as if he were seeing the last 2 decades through a new lens. I thought I was honoring her, he said quietly. And I thought loving you was enough to show you that you weren't replacing her. I never wanted you to feel less. Camille looked down. But I did. I felt a strange mix of empathy and hurt. She wasn't evil. She wasn't heartless. She was drowning in emotions she'd hidden too long. But what she did today, that wasn't grief. That was sabotage. The letter and what my mother really wrote. My father handed the envelope to me gently. Alyssa, it's yours. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a folded page, yellowed slightly at the edges. My mother's handwriting was still beautiful, elegant, delicate, familiar, even though I barely remembered her voice. I took a deep breath and began reading. My sweet Alyssa, if you are reading this, it means your wedding day has come. I may not be there in person, but I will always be with you in every choice you make, every joy you feel, and every dream you chase. Love is not perfect. It is not always easy. But when you find the right person, love becomes courage. Courage to build, to forgive, and to grow. Carry my love with you, but live your own life bravely and freely. I am proud of you, my darling. Mom. By the time I finished, tears blurred the final words. The room felt still, as if even time paused to let me grieve and breathe. Jenna wiped her eyes. Even the decorators were crying quietly. I looked up at Camille. Her expression was unreadable, not smug, not ashamed. Just hollow. That, I said firmly, is what you tried to take from me. She swallowed hard. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did, my father said softly. And you hurt yourself too. The emotional collapse. Camille burst into tears, real, uncontrolled, heart-wrenching tears, the kind I had never seen from her. I loved you both, she cried. I tried so hard to be enough, and I always felt like I was standing on the edge of a family that didn't belong to me. Her vulnerability shook me. But pain isn't an excuse to cause more pain. Camille, I said gently, you could have talked to us. You could have asked for space. You could have had a moment today to honor yourself. But instead, you tried to erase someone else's memory. She nodded slowly, trembling. I know, and I'm sorry. For the first time, she genuinely meant it. My father wrapped an arm around me. Alyssa, this is your day. You decide what happens next. All eyes turned to me. My stepmother staring with pleading eyes, my father waiting heartbroken. Jenna holding her breath, guests beginning to arrive just outside the hall. I had to choose. Would I let Camille stay? Or would I ask her to leave and reclaim my day entirely? My wedding, and the future of our family, depended on my next words. Everyone was staring at me, my bridesmaids, the decorators, the coordinator standing frozen with a clipboard halfway raised. And at the center of it all stood Camille, clutch trembling in her hand, mascara smudged from the tears she swore she'd never shed in front of me. My father's expression was the one that broke me the most, not angry, not disappointed. Just tired. Like he suddenly understood a truth he should have noticed years ago. "Alyssa," he said softly, "this is your day. You decide what happens next. There is no manual for this. No etiquette guide for what to do when your stepmom steals your mother's wedding letter because of a 20-year-old grudge. There was only instinct, mine." I looked at Camille. Her eyes weren't cruel anymore. They were small, afraid, and filled with a vulnerability I didn't recognize. "Alyssa," she whispered, voice cracking. "I'm sorry. I really am." I believed she was sorry now. But remorse after damage isn't the same as preventing the damage at all. "You hurt me," I said quietly. "You hurt Dad. You ruined parts of this day that meant everything to me." Camille nodded, swallowing hard. "I know. I felt forgotten." "And so you tried to erase my mother to feel remembered?" I asked. She looked down. No defense, no denial. Just silence. The decision my bridesmaids gathered near me protectively. I felt Jenna squeeze my hand. "Whatever you choose, we're with you," she whispered. I inhaled slowly. I could have asked Camille to leave the venue. No one would blame me. It would have been justified. But when I looked at her, really looked, I saw a woman who'd been holding on to resentment for so long that it twisted into something harmful. I saw someone who never found her place in our family and blamed a woman who wasn't alive to respond. My mother wouldn't want me to let bitterness destroy my day. And she definitely wouldn't want me to become what Camille had become, someone ruled by old wounds. So I chose not forgiveness, not punishment, but boundary. "Camille," I said slowly, "you can stay, but you are not part of the ceremony. You won't be in the front row. You won't make any speeches. And you will not interfere again. Do you understand?" Her face crumpled, not offended, not defensive, just defeated. A quiet surrender. "Yes," she whispered. "I understand." My father let out a shaky breath, relief mixed with heartbreak. He stepped toward me and kissed my forehead. "You're stronger than either of us," he murmured. "Maybe." But at that moment, I didn't feel strong. I felt exhausted, emotionally scraped clean. The moment with my mother's letter, when Camille handed my father the envelope, he held it with the same tenderness someone might hold a fragile memory. Then he passed it to me. "I never stopped loving her," he said softly. "But I never meant to make anyone compete with that." His honesty hit me unexpectedly deep. I nodded. "I know, Dad." I opened the envelope again. I read my mother's words slowly, letting each sentence settle into the places where hurt had been living that morning. Her letter didn't heal everything. It didn't erase Camille's actions. But it reminded me of something essential. My mother loved me in a way no one could replace or rewrite. And nothing Camille did could take that from me. Tears streaked my cheeks, but they felt different now, not from sadness but from release. The wedding begins. By the time the ceremony was ready to start, I had gathered myself. My makeup was fixed. My bouquet, with a single blush peony added last minute by a kind florist who insisted he'd find one, somehow was secure in my hands. As I walked down the aisle with my father, I noticed Camille sitting quietly in the second row. Not sulking, not glaring, just present. Small, still, processing, and maybe healing. When I reached the altar, Evan looked at me with soft concern. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded. "I am now." He squeezed my hands. "Good, because we're here. Right now, together." The ceremony felt peaceful, sincere, gentle, grounded, nothing like the chaos of that morning. It felt like the universe exhaling. The aftermath, and the shift. The reception went smoothly. Camille kept her distance respectfully. She didn't make a scene. She didn't hover. She didn't force fake conversations. She simply stayed quiet, like someone replaying the consequences of their own choices. At the end of the night, she approached me, slowly, cautiously. "Alyssa," she murmured, "thank you for not sending me away." I nodded. "Today wasn't about you. It wasn't about Mom. It was about me and Evan, and I want to remember it that way." Her eyes softened. "I'm going to get help. For myself. I don't want to be this person anymore." It wasn't a promise I expected, but it was one I genuinely hoped she would keep. The legacy of the grudge my wedding wasn't perfect. It wasn't the smooth fairy tale I imagined. But it became something else. A turning point, a reckoning. A moment where truth finally surfaced after 20 quiet, heavy years. And I realized something important. Family wounds don't disappear when ignored. They disappear when confronted. When boundaries are set. When honesty finally breathes. My mother had been part of my day after all, through her letter, through my choices, and through the strength she'd passed down to me. And Camille? She finally faced the shadow she'd been fighting for decades. Not by winning, but by stopping the fight. The morning after my wedding, I woke up with my hair still pinned crookedly from the night before and my cheeks stiff from dried makeup and happy tears. I expected the first thing I'd think about to be the ceremony or Evan or our first dance. But instead, I thought about Camille, not with anger, not with resentment, but with a lingering sense of unfinished understanding. What she'd tried to do still hurt. What she took from me, moments I'll never get back, wasn't small. But the truth underneath her behavior had exposed something I couldn't ignore. Our family had been broken a long time before the wedding ever began. And now that everything had cracked open, there was finally room for change. The days after the wedding, Evan and I stayed in our hometown for a few extra days before our mini honeymoon. My father asked if he could take me to breakfast, and though part of me wanted to rest, I knew he needed this conversation. He was already seated when I arrived, stirring his coffee repeatedly even though he hadn't added anything to it. "You okay, Dad?" I asked gently. He exhaled, shoulders slumping. "I keep replaying everything Camille said yesterday, and everything she's done. And the truth is, I didn't realize how much she was hurting." I sat down across from him. "Dad, none of that excuses what she did." "I know," he said quickly. "You're right, but I also realize I failed her in ways I didn't understand. I thought loving her was enough. I didn't see the resentment forming. There was pain in his eyes, deep, honest, human pain." "Do you regret marrying her?" I asked softly. He hesitated. "No. I regret not communicating better. I regret not understanding her insecurities sooner. I regret letting you feel alone with her." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry, Alyssa." The apology hit me harder than I expected. My father had always been the quiet type, steady, dependable, but not expressive. Hearing him say he failed me felt like stitching a wound I didn't know still bled. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I know you did your best. That counts for something." His eyes softened. "Thank you." A message from Camille later that afternoon. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. When I opened the message, my breath caught. It was from Camille. "I'm getting help. Therapy starts next week. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope one day you'll see I'm trying to be better." Beneath the text was a photo. My mother's letter, carefully framed. She must have done it that morning. I stared at the picture for a long time. And for the first time in 20 years, I felt something shift, not forgiveness, but possibility. Where we stand now, over the next few months, things didn't magically fix themselves. But there was movement, small, steady, meaningful. Camille stopped inserting herself into every family moment. She apologized to me again, in person this time, awkward and genuine. My father and I started having deeper conversations. And I stopped seeing myself as the child stuck between the memory of one mother and the presence of another. Instead, I began to understand that I could carry both truths inside me, my mother's love and my stepmother's struggles. One didn't erase the other. The biggest change of all, one evening, months after the wedding, Camille asked if she could visit. I agreed cautiously. She arrived with a small bag in hand. Inside was a delicate lace handkerchief. This belonged to your mother, she said softly. Your father kept it in a drawer for years. I thought you should have it. I blinked in surprise. Why now? She swallowed. Because holding on to resentment is like trying to move forward while dragging chains. I don't want to live that way anymore. And I don't want to hurt you ever again. It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. I nodded, accepting the gift. Thank you, Camille. She looked relieved, not forgiven, but acknowledged. Sometimes that's the starting point. The legacy of a broken grudge. Looking back now, my wedding day wasn't just the day I married Evan. It was the day my entire family finally faced our shadow. Camille faced her insecurity. My father faced his avoidance. And I faced the painful truth that love can be complicated, layered, flawed, human. But I learned something powerful. A grudge doesn't disappear when the person you resent is gone. It disappears when you choose to stop carrying it. My stepmother spent 20 years carrying a weight that wasn't hers to hold. And on my wedding day, she finally dropped it. Messily, painfully, publicly. It wasn't pretty, but growth rarely is. As for me, I realized that honoring my mother didn't mean rejecting Camille. It meant living my life with the compassion she taught me. The same compassion I needed to extend, not to erase the past, but to move beyond it. And that's exactly what I did.